New questions on Iran's nuclear program and whether or not the U.S. is considering a military strike against the rogue regime. U.S. officials in the past have backed away from such an attack, but is the option now back on the table, and what would the consequences be? Jim Walsh is an international security expert at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, also an expert on Iran. Hello, Jim.
Good to see you again, Arthel.
Good to see you, Jim. First up, the U.S. and the allies are in a quandary when it comes to, or are they in a quandary when it comes to perhaps containing or wiping out Iran's nuclear capabilities altogether?
Yeah, I think that this is a difficult prospect to try to look at. In the past, U.S. officials have said, no, we can't do it from a technical standpoint. Now they're thinking maybe they can, but even if you can do it technically, even if you can get to every site, you cannot bomb the knowledge out of the heads of the Iranians. The Iranians know how to build a centrifuge. They know how to enrich uranium, and that's not going to change whether you bomb the sites or not. But I think more importantly, the thing that weighs on U.S. policymakers are the consequences that you alluded to. If you take military action in the Middle East, you can expect major consequences.
And right now we're looking at some video from 1981 of Israel's attack on Iraq. And while we're watching that, let me talk about this: diplomacy and economic pressure. So which key countries, Jim, would have to be on board? And even if the U.S. and allies are on one accord, would diplomacy and economic sanctions actually work to get Iran to cooperate?
Well, first, Arthel, the question on who do you really need? You need Russia and China to continue to lend their support. Russia has sort of gone back and forth, back and forth. They're on board right now, but those are the two key countries. Can diplomacy and pressure work? I think they can. They did work to suspend that program back in 2003. Iran suspended its enrichment program for 2 years. I still think that there's the possibility that something can be worked out. But I think Joe Klein in Time this week is right to say U.S. policymakers are worried about it. They're not going to go to the military option right away, tomorrow, next year, the year after. But several years down the road, if we continue on this path, it is going to become a live option.
And do we have the option to wait several years is the question. And then also, if it comes to military, if the option is back on the table, what does that really mean for the U.S. and its allies? Again, the consequences. And also, where does Israel fit into that picture?
Yeah, on the first, do we have time? I think most U.S. Analysts, and I've talked to many in the administration about this, think we do have some time because Iran is having problems with its enrichment program. It's run into technical difficulties, whether we caused that, whether they caused it, and the consequence is that the program has slowed down, and that has bought us some more time. On consequences, I think you were right to have shown that video from the Israeli strike on the Osirak reactor of Iraq back in 1981. It shows the difficulties of using preemptive strikes on nuclear programs. Why? What happened? Well, before that strike, Saddam had this nuclear program. It was one of several exotic weapons programs. But after that strike, Saddam made it job number one. He said this was our top national priority. He released from prison several nuclear scientists that he had locked up and now put them to work on the bomb program. If we attack Iran, there's certainly a good chance that they will respond by saying, oh, yeah, we're definitely going to build the bomb now. So that's one of the things policymakers have to weigh.
And Jim, adding to that, if Iran does have nukes, then other countries, neighboring countries, say, hey, I want in too. Why can't we have them?
I hear you, Arthel. That is commonly said, and I know a lot of people think that. This is an area that I've studied a lot, and I think if you look at the historical record, it hasn't happened that way. We haven't had chains where you get one after the other after the other. Remember, Israel got nuclear weapons in 1966. Everyone thought that Egypt and Saudi Arabia and others would get nuclear weapons in response to Israel, and it didn't happen. So I think there's some play there. The U.S. can play a stabilizing role. Most countries would rather have the U.S. as a friend protecting it than being on its own with a nuclear weapon. So I think we have some options here. It's not all doom and gloom.
Well, we don't want it to be all doom and gloom, and I'm not so sure that other countries may not want to get on board if, in fact, Iran has nukes. But you're the expert. Jim Walsh, always good to talk to you. Thank you.